Hello, everyone, and welcome to what is the last Facebook Live in leading up to Aginext, except for, if you come to the actual live event on the 21st and 22nd of March. We're talking to Katherine Kirk, who is part of the Aginext Agile Tour London family for sure. So, Katherine, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself to start?
Okay, so a little bit about myself is that I would say I'm a troublemaker in that I am obsessed with understanding difficulty and trying to turn that into effectiveness or amazingness, which sounds a little bit like I'm going to be doing, kind of motivational stuff. But actually, I have been studying and practicing and translating and interpreting Eastern philosophical patterns to see if they can help software engineering teams, technical leadership, and also leadership in general overcome the things that Agile and Lean tend to have tend to not have the capacity to deal with, right? So it's things like politics.
Yeah.
Right? Politics is one of those things. And so I came to that from very excitedly doing a degree in computing and going to Oxford to do a master's in software engineering and thinking that, I was going to come out of that and just save the universe. And then realizing that no matter what I did, because was able to turn around teams and work in really amazing teams, like the first iPad app for iPlayer, worked in that team, that after a while, hell would ensue, no matter what we did, if you stayed in a company for some time. Mm-hmm. And so I went chasing after that to try and fix that. So individual level, team level. Then when I used to fix teams, then it would be, can you deal with the division? So then I went into, designing strategies and rollouts for divisions. And then, of course, that sort of sorted itself out. And then people said, please go and talk to the leaders because they're a bit painful. And so now I'm primarily in the leadership space or delivery lead space because that's where the most politics and misunderstanding is. But every time I would leave, things would go very well, but then other stuff would degrade. And then I'd talk to other amazing, specialists and coaches, project managers, developers, and they'd all be complaining that no matter what they did, it all kind of goes to crap, right? Eventually, right? So we'd all unite, get together, turn it round, and then give it some time. And so I just thought, what is that? What is the thing? Is it me? Is it the industry? And so I wasn't too concerned because I knew that I was capable and my friends were capable and I could go in and help people. But then I started to see burnout really badly. And I experienced...
Or in the team or both?
In teams, everywhere. I once, when I was working on a really high profile app in a very famous company, I had a developer get a blood nose from working too many nights in a retrospective. So this is an Agile Lean environment. And he's bleeding and the delivery guy at the front's going, here's some tissues. Let's just keep going. We've got to deliver tonight. So I've seen people pushed beyond. And after those projects at that famous place with lots of really amazing things happening, I got burnout and I crashed really, really badly. And I saw actually that's a pattern. And we know that because big conferences like QCon and so on and talk about depression and burnout and those types of things. And I saw good people trying to make it better, making it better. But then there was something else that was like really an invisible force almost that was constantly needing attention. So I was studying and practicing a form of mindfulness through Mahasi Vipassana, it's called, trying to de-stress myself, Yeah.
Is this like meditation or?
Yes, I went to study meditation. And I was sitting, going through the meditation process. So Mahasi Vipassana is a great form of mindfulness because it's really down to the basics, not very much pomp and ceremony. I'm very much kind of like, let's get to the crux of things. Found a monk over 12 years ago who's very dry and very unpretentious and mean, which is good. And sort of, you know, learned these techniques. And as I was there, I started to see that what they were talking about, I could apply to teams and divisions. So it wasn't just about the individual and being mindful, but how could we help teams be mindful? How could we help, and so on and so forth. Now, I must point out, I don't like the word mindful because I think it's been bastardized by the Western culture. So I prefer to call it situational awareness. That's the corporate word, situational awareness, yeah? So the idea is, with situational awareness, is that an action without context could be a very stupid action, right? So I'm hungry, I want to stuff my face. Yeah, there we go. So I grab something in the middle of the table and I want to put it into my mouth and eat it. Context one, I'm at home. It's my favorite food. I've had a hard day. I can be as messy as I want. Context two, so the context's changed. And now I'm at my partner's house, parents' house. It's Christmas dinner. I'm not thinking that's a really good thing to do. There's, you know, just reach in there, grab as much as I can and start stuffing my face, right? Imagine it's chips or something. But sometimes we get so stressed and freaked out and very narrow-minded, right? We have the instinct, I need, like that. And then suddenly the context, we forget. And it's out of sync. And then we create a ton of difficulty we didn't expect. So I might be starving, hungry. I'm at Christmas dinner with my partner's parents. I grab these chips and I start eating because I am that starving. I look up and I realize I've just offended 12 people and really shamed my partner. And that's a difficult situation I accidentally created, right? So I saw that there were two different types of difficulty. One, which is just what happens to you, yeah. And the other, which is how I make it even harder for myself. And the way that you reduce difficulty, at least by 50%, I would say, is by being aware of the situation far more. So having situational awareness. So if you do get any impulses or you get some ideas, you can just double check to see if that's going to create more difficulty for yourself. So an area that I see where this happens quite a lot is where people play politics. So they'll look at a relationship really simply and they'll say, I've got to manipulate this guy because if he does this thing and they do that thing and I do this thing, I'll get this short-term goal. And they don't actually think out the larger context and get situational awareness. And they play that little bit of politics and then further down the line, something awful happens. Yeah. And that affects their job or that affects the team or it affects the division. Or worse still, it affects everybody else and not them. So everybody else has got the consequence. So keeping on talking about me, how I got to the point of where I'm at, is that I found that the meditation was studying something which is just how things come to pass, right? How things come to pass. Very, very simple. And we do meditations on just aging, illness, and death. Now that sounds absolutely shocking because you're like,
illness and death.
Yeah, and you just sit there and just meditate on this concept of aging, illness, and death, which I found very stressful. And for a little while there, I'm like, oh my God, I can't handle it. But then you suddenly kind of get used to the idea of thinking about what is happening when we age? What is happening when we get ill? What is happening when we die? And then it's like, oh, everybody experiences that. Everybody has that. Everybody is aging, getting ill and dying, okay? And they're our biggest fears. And then you realize, okay, I realize, no, well, at that point, so there's some force that's driving that. And so I went and spoke to my super science friends, and they were like, oh, yeah, we already know about that. I'm like, okay. So what is this thing that's making everything, sort of degrade? And they said, oh, that's entropy in the arrow of time. It's physics. We argue about it all the time. And I was like, oh. And so my friends tell me the universe is built fundamentally to come to a place of disorder all of the time. So whatever forms is going to degrade, it'll dysfunction, and it'll expire. And the upside to that is that when things degrade, we use that to transform things. When things dysfunction, we can innovate. When things expire, we can start new things and have new beginnings. And that's what human beings do really, really well. That's why we've survived.
We're physically not the best.
Yes, exactly. And when I understood this, I thought, oh, it's a pattern. So I called it the three inevitables. And it's one of the patterns that I use when I go into work situations, is to just trigger, what are we reacting to? What's degrading? What's dysfunctioning? And what's expiring? So that's the three inevitables: degradation, dysfunction, and expiry. And then you can flip it, of course, because there's always two sides to everything. And you can flip it and say, so if something is degrading, how could we transform? Mm-hmm. If something is dysfunctioning, how could we innovate? If something is expiring, how can we look for new beginnings? Mm-hmm. And of course, that ties very nicely into risk management.
And software life cycles.
Yeah, oh, exactly. And that helps us predict a little better at speed. And that's the crucial thing here, at speed, because I know there's lots of de-risking mechanisms out there. But what I was looking for is, I specialize in hell scenarios where you haven't got time. But at speed, can we quickly work out what we're reacting to here? And can we work out whether there's a flip side in some way? Yeah, so that's one. But that's all fine. But what turns difficulty, because that's difficult when things like projects, products, right? Programs all degrade, all dysfunction, and all expire. Yeah, I haven't heard of one that doesn't eventually. So we can say to ourselves, oh yes, I know that, I know that. So what I'm going to do is transform, innovate, and make new beginnings. And that's agile, right? Agile and lean. But, and that's difficult, right? That's difficult. But what turns it into hell? Right?
Well, you said politics. I was thinking about the title of your talk at Aginext is How to Navigate Out of Hell. Yes. And hell, that was going to be my first question. What is hell to you? Because I think if you watch A Good Place, hell or The Bad Place is all very subjective and customized, bespoke for what people think it is.
Oh, there's a pattern there.
For hell, for you, it's the politics. It's the trying to manipulate people.
Sometimes, there's a lot of hells, Jennifer. There's a lot of hells. Yeah. There's a So I had to walk into this, and I started to try to be a student of difficulty. So I had a lot of success, and it made me bored. And I realized that I've got a deep compassion for others. I've been bullied. I've been discriminated against. I've been, through suffering illness and all sorts of stuff. So I'm a student of difficulty, and I thought, how do I help others? And one of the things I thought was, I need to walk into these situations. So in the last 10 years, I've become a specialist in hell, right? And how we can use some tricks to get out of that. Interestingly, most of the stuff I do is after Lean and Agile comes in, but it's not because Lean and Agile doesn't work. It's because Lean and Agile will do great things on the practical level, but there's this otherness, right? These invisible forces that are just creating churn that we can't get out of. Having said that, I do non-Agile projects. But, and so over time, I worked out that the difference between difficulty and hell is Let me give you an analogy. So let's just say we've got chocolate cake, which is one of my major favorites, okay? And just imagine the most succulent, most beautiful chocolate cake you've ever had in your life. And you think, you know, you just can't wait every week, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. You're like, I just got it. And let's just, so there we have a bit of heaven, don't we? Right there. And then next, let's just say that someone says, well, actually, you can have that 5 times like a week, this week, you can have it 5 times or 7 times this week, every day. And you're like, oh, that sounds like heaven. Try doing it. Every single day, that chocolate cake. Now, suddenly it's not heaven, but it's nice, but I've got a few repercussions. I'm putting on a bit of weight, you know, so it'd be lovely if I could stop. But let's just say, so that's okay. But let's just say now someone says, you're going to eat just chocolate cake for a week, right? That's the only food you're going to get. So now we've got a week of just eating that chocolate cake, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, you name it. And it goes from heaven to okay to, that's a bit difficult. But if you knew that in a week you can go back to normal food, you might do it. And then you'd have a great story, dinner party story. Oh my God, I did this week of eating chocolate cake, got sick as hell, but it was fun, right? So what turns that into hell? I'll tell you what it does. It says you have to eat chocolate cake all of the time. So I've taken away your option there. I've said you, yeah, for an indefinite period of time. So it's not a week. This is the food you're going to have indefinitely. And suddenly this feeling comes over. That feels like hell. That's
feeling
hell.
trapped, not feeling like you have a right to speak for yourself, to have your own autonomy.
Yeah. So human beings, when things degrade, dysfunction, and expire, are quite fine with that. Very successful. Look at technology, which are turn around into, you know, transformation, innovation, and new beginnings over and over again. But when someone blocks your ability to do anything about it, whatever it is, even if it's your most favorite chocolate cake, then the difficulty arises. And worse still, tying it back to your reaction can actually create more difficulty. What happens if you accidentally trap yourself? What happens if you made some stupid decisions and ended up that chocolate cake was all you could eat?
You overcommit, like someone that overcommits and says, I'll do this, and then they basically shove their foot in their mouth because they can't deliver what they feel obligated to deliver. I guess usually the way people get out of hell is looking for other jobs while they're in the office. But that's because it seems to them as the only way to get out of eating the chocolate cake. Yeah, if using that analogy, but it's the only way to get out. It's the only thing you feel you can do. Now the problem with that is that it's quite a big effort to find another job, to keep moving. I mean, there's nothing like finding a great team with lots of, with a community and somewhere close by with all the things that you want, to be able to learn to make that work, to instead of get into that position where you have to leave all of the time. And I know some consultants out there that are earning a lot of money per day, but the only reason they're there is because they have been tackling this burnout, right? And when I've spoken... Not even tackling it, just
that's their way.
Work for longer and build it up more.
That's it. Yeah. So when I spoke to those people and said, well, you know, because I'm a student of difficulty, I said, well, you know, what's going on? They just say, you know, this is the only way I can keep saying this if I keep moving on and moving on and moving on and moving on. Yeah.
Standard parenting technique as well. For parents.
But then they tell me a secret, and the secret is, they say to me, I'd work for 1/3 of the price, right, per day, if I could just have a nice team and a routine. Because actually being this highfalutin consultant is burning me out also. Mm-hmm. You know? So
I've never met someone that works for the Big Four that's happy.
That's it. So there's that kind of thing. There's what happens, yeah, including difficult things happen. And then there's our reaction. And so what I specialize in is I've found out that your reaction can determine the outcome. from doing all of this, you know, Eastern philosophical stuff, more than just mindfulness and Buddhist meditation, but also, you know, Sikh. I've looked at Sikh and I've looked at Hindu. I've looked, not just that, I've studied it and got qualifications and things like yoga teacher. I am one. I haven't taught a class, but I could if I wanted to.
Well, you're welcome to teach a class during a break at Aginext. I would, for one, love it.
That'd be super fun. Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. So in summary, what I worked out is you can be a difficulty martial artist. So I had a CEO once say to me, Katherine, every time we go into battle with others, they've got guns and we've got no weapons. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, the trick is, not that I said it because I invented that concept. I got this from the monks. I'm stealing everything from monks and nuns here. Yeah. The trick is to be a difficulty martial artist, right? So in judo, you don't have a weapon, but you can learn ways where if someone comes at you with weapons, to use that energy and that force, even if you're little and weak, so that you can disarm the situation and get to a point of safety. And then maybe, you know, develop a relationship with that person or a connection with that person to diffuse it completely and do something effective. Now that concept, those ideas are very, very applicable in the work scenario. They really are. And so I specialize in translating really simple stuff. So I teach a training program. It lasts for 8 weeks, just 5 patterns. That's, I think, around about, you know, 3 words a pattern. So what I'm thinking about is I've arrived inside of a really urgent situation. What can I very quickly use to assess and bring that tension down? And then I can use all my other tools and experience and everything else to help out at a slower pace rather than urgent and in hell.
How do people know when they're in hell? How do they recognize that? Or is it turnover? Is that usually by the time?
Stress? No. There's many indications. Stress, fatigue, and assholeness. Yeah.
Yeah, but those are like, for me, as a single proprietor that's been on many teams, that's just a sign to get the hell out of there. That
feeling is your indicator.
That's called, I'm done with this project.
But there's a point earlier. It's not a sudden, if you can become more situationally aware, you can see that coming. You'll notice where frogs in the pot, you know, that analogy that the heat slowly goes, you know, we put a frog in a pot that's on the oven and we put the heat on and slowly it warms up and the frog's like, oh, nice bath, you know, until finally it dies because it doesn't realize. It doesn't realize that he's getting cooked. And now we're kind of like that, where we're not situationally aware, and then all we get is this moment like, oh my God, this is really hot. We jump out of the situation. But what I'm saying is, if you want to be a transformation artist, right, to transform situations and to grow, because every single company has crap in it, then the thing is to be able to change your situational awareness so that you become aware of the level of stress increasing, you become aware of the level of assholeness increasing, you become aware of the level of fatigue, right? We got change fatigue, empathy fatigue, decision fatigue, you know, you name it. Fatigue.
And this is usually the leadership of the teams that are the ones.
No, they're all of us. That's all of us. So this is why it's fractal. This concept I'm talking about. I know that I end up in leadership right now, but I think that's because Lean and Agile are doing a pretty good job on the ground, you know, where work gets done. And so people just shove me up there and say, deal with that. But this is fractal, right? Because degradation, dysfunction, and expiry happen to software systems. So you can use it when you're doing software, yeah, coding. It's also about relationships and teams. Teams do degrade, dysfunction and expire. Our relationship may degrade, our relationship may dysfunction, and our relationship might just, you know, expire, Jennifer. You know, this could happen. Yeah. Because of entropy in the arrow of time. And that's, so anyway, I think I've kind of given as much of a kind of a teaser or an introduction to some core concepts. And in my talk, what I'm going to do is talk about some practical ways that you can see these invisible forces and slowly navigate your way out, right? How do you see the stress, the fatigue, and the assholeness in yourself and others? And how do you then work your way towards better situational awareness and perhaps even become that transformation artist that I think everybody in technology needs to be, no matter if you're a developer or a CEO.
So to turn it into transformation, innovation, and new beginnings.
Yeah, and just to keep focus on that. And when you feel trapped, then hang on, there are options. And do you know what? In every situation I've ever been in, all I ever do is say, this is a technique to, these are the options available to you, and this is how you can counterbalance it, right?
And that's all people want. They want options. They don't want limitless options. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to know they have some sort of power. And
that's called empowerment. So I don't tell them those answers. What I do is I teach a construct, right, which helps people do it themselves. So I disappear, and now they know this technique that when they feel trapped, they can actually, you know, develop a strategy. They can work out their own personal, you know, difficulties and work through them. All of that they can do themselves, right? So the only reason I learned that is because I was doing all that meditating, and I did 12 years of it, going into these, you know, a lot of stuff. But and every time I learned a lesson, when I went out to consult, it just tended to kind of to match. But I know there's so much work done for individuals. What I concentrate on is the fractal use of it. So teams, divisions, companies, thinking, getting situational awareness very, very quickly, working out how much of this difficulty is something you've got to live with, how much of this can we work with, and then what can we do with that? At speed and at scale, which is all people want to hear anyway. Yeah, because that's where the difficulty is. But I haven't hunted speed and scale down. All I'm doing is going, student of difficulty that I am, let me keep walking in and walking in and walking in and walking in, you know. And I've taken a lot of abuse from poor, stressed out people, just, you know, being with them. But you know what? You can see a change in like literally 2 weeks just from being able to see these invisible forces and so, okay, I'm accidentally creating extra difficulty for myself. I can control that. Right? Denial is the first step of grief. And then it's not denial though. Get past it. Well, I'd say it's ignorance. Ignorance is infinite. Think about it, right? I do not know how trains work. I'm ignorant of that. You know, I do not know how lights work. I'm ignorant of that. There's no way we can know everything. So we're always going to be falling over ourselves, making stupid decisions. But there are simple, fast techniques that we can draw from ancient methodologies, including Sikh, including Muslim, including, you know, where people have been refining and refining and refining ways of looking at the world, and reduce our difficulty and get out of hell. So have you thought of consulting politicians and government, because they seem to be the most in demand for this type of reflection and revisiting, and the most in the hell? Well, they'd have to become more situationally aware and more data driven. So I don't know about that. I would welcome the opportunity. Yeah. You would be more abused than ever, but maybe affect the most people as possible. Well, actually, all you need to do, initially, you might have to take a bit of abuse when you go in to deal with hell scenarios. But if you just stop and really listen to what that person's saying and say, is this the hell you're in? Most times at that point, they're going to calm down and go, yeah, this is the hell I'm in. And then you say, let's do something about it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so so that's the thing, is we tend to run from difficulty. We tend to get scared of it becoming hell. And sometimes that in itself creates the hell. That's what I've found. So what I say is, yeah, and you know, we're coming up to we are in the fourth industrial revolution and beyond, right? The World Economic Forum has got a whole website on the whole thing. Life is difficult now, very difficult. And we need to be able to rise to that occasion, because there's so much awesome stuff that we can build and be of service to the world with, if we could just learn how to deal with this high entropy, rapid churn of, you know, change interdependency across the world, you know, lots and lots of imperfect situations happening because we haven't got time. How do we turn that into great things? And these ancient teachings and things, if you strip out all the religious elements, actually have little handy hints in there to do it because they've been doing it for years.
Religion, when it comes down to the brass tacks, they're all pretty much given the same message: treat others like you want to be treated. And they've just been bastardized to subjugate people from there. So there's definitely good points in everything ancient and wise.
I think with Buddhism, what's the thing they say? It's not a religion. It's only a religion for tax purposes. It's an inquiry. Buddhist, I'm not sure I would call myself Buddhist, but I see it as a method of inquiry. What situation am I in? And how do I reduce difficulty and increase wise decision making? You know, that's their crux, you know. Makes it a bit dry sometimes, but, you know. So there you go. That's me. And I really hope people do, you know, come along to the talk because I'm going to be really getting down to the crux of it. And then if I'm hoping to give a construct where you can literally fill in a way of handling a situation to illuminate what else you might be able to do about it if you feel trapped. Of course, I have to warn as well that if you are in a situation where you're highly stressed, highly fatigued, there's a lot of arseholeness around, you know, get yourself safe. Don't put up with it. You know, if it's gone beyond, take care of yourself. There is no job in the world that is worth your mental health or your physical health.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Katherine. I think we're all very excited for your talk.
Oh, I'm excited. I really can't wait. I'm really looking forward to this one.
And anybody that's listening right now, there's a ticket sale ending today, the 18th, so you might want to buy it today so you can get a front seat for Katherine's talk.
And talk to me when I'm there because I'm gonna stick around. I wanna hear all about other people's difficulties.
Maybe we can get that yoga set up too. But that's the point of the conference. It's about the conversations in between. The talks are just to spark the conversations.
Oh, I like that. The reason I like that is because I go from the principle that every person I share something with, I am a student of. So
absolutely, yeah.
That's what I'm looking forward to, meeting people I can be a student of.
Fantastic. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.